Alright, it's finally time to continue my Tony Hawk's Pro Skater franchise review. The reason why it's been so long is because I've really been wrapped up in reviewing other things, and I got a little tired of playing all the Tony Hawk's games over again. But after my look-backs of the first two Tony Hawk's games, and after playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater HD, my interest in the franchise has sparked once again, and I'm back to continue my review of this long-running franchise, and I'm starting right where I left off, and that's with Project 8. Despite American Wasteland technically being the first of the franchise to appear on the newer consoles with its release on the 360, Project 8 would be the game where Neversoft would actually use the newer console's higher processing power and graphical capabilities. Neversoft pretty much uses the same gameplay setup as American Wasteland, but tries to expand on it. You play a character who lives in a small town called Suburbia. It's your typical Tony Hawk's franchise storyline of a small town skater who's trying to make it to the big leagues, and you have to work your way up the ranks to progress through the storyline. The gameplay is the same as before. You have the option just to skate around and free roam, but in order to unlock other parts of the town, you have to go to certain people within each part of that town, and they will give you missions to complete. Neversoft did make changes to the mission setup. Some missions are still the same, where you have to complete the entire thing in order to move on. However, most of the missions now are split into 3 levels of difficulty. You have the Amateur difficulty, Pro difficulty, and Sick difficulty. For example, let's say the mission has you doing a grind. How far you do the grind for will tell you what level of difficulty you've completed. If you only go as far as the Amateur level, then that's the difficulty you've completed. While it is fun to try and get sick for all the missions, you actually can complete the entire storyline by just getting Amateur for all of them. Also, for some of the missions, even getting Amateur is a humongous challenge. Another feature added to the gameplay was the new Nail the Trick mode. In this mode, your character gains air, and the camera will zoom in, and the game goes into slow motion. You have to complete as many tricks as you can in this mode without bailing. The trick, though, is to wait to do the next trick when the deck of the board is up and straight, because if you do it at any other time, then you'll just fail. It is an insanely hard mode on the first couple of tries, but it gets easier as time goes on. But even then, you'll still bail on a couple occasions. I think the only problem I have with this new mode is the angle, because from this certain perspective, it will look like at times that the board is straight and ready for the next trick, when it actually isn't, but overall, it's a really fun and addicting addition to the gameplay. Some of the new gameplay elements don't pan out so well. In fact, some of it seems like last-minute ideas by Neversoft, as if they needed to add more to the game but ran out of ideas. For instance, there's a mission that has you purposely bailing to see how many bones you can break, and then there's a bowling mission where you have to bail into the pins to see how many you can knock down. Stuff like this is interesting, but it doesn't blend in with the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater gameplay. The online mode is pretty addicting, and it's nicely set up overall, but as you have all probably seen from my Tony Hawk's Pro Skater HD review, I'm not the best player in the history of this franchise, so it's tough to play with those who are getting insane numbers on the online mode. From a physics standpoint, the game is okay. An early problem that I had with Project 8 was getting used to the landings and getting them timed perfectly. The game's physics are noticeably different than they were in American Wasteland and the games before it, so it does take some getting used to. However, there are moments in the game where you think you're going to land a trick and you eventually bail, but this is a minor issue because it's happened in the previous games as well. I think the only unforgivable element when skateboarding is constantly losing control of your character. The physics engine does have moments where you're going too fast and doing too many tricks, and this will cause your character to go out of control. This is particularly noticeable in half pipes when your character is going way too fast, and if you go slightly right, you will fly across the skate park. However, a slight saving grace is being able to hit both trigger buttons and land flat on the skateboard. Graphically, the game looks really good. I've only played the 360 version, and it's definitely a huge improvement over the 360's version of American Wasteland. However, that doesn't mean that there aren't problems from a technical standpoint with the game, and these technical problems do hurt the gameplay in some regards. The big problem with this game is the frame rate. Project 8 for the 360 has very jumpy frame rate issues, and from what I can gather, the PS3 version is even worse. However, the frame rate for the 360's version is bad too, mainly because these frame rate issues happen at the worst times. I don't mind frame rate problems going from one part of the city to the other, that's fine. Other games have had the same issue when it comes to open world. However, frame rate issues happen during tricks as well, which causes a huge problem. If it happens during a trick, you're most likely going to bail, which sucks. However, the character models and the city look phenomenal, and it's wonderfully detailed. Granted, this game could use a better map, but that's a minor issue. So overall, the Tony Hawk franchise's transition to the 7th generation of consoles was not quite as memorable as its transition to the 6th generation with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. However, Tony Hawk's Project 8 is pretty good. Neversoft added some really cool new elements to the gameplay, but there were a couple new elements that really had no reason for being in the game. However, fans should find a lot of things to like about Tony Hawk's Project 8. Well everyone, that's it for now. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.